Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the midweek video and really go over one of the case studies from yesterday, which just absolutely blew my mind, which is essentially looking at the daily candle on pretty much almost every kind of broad market or blue chip stock was showing this yesterday. So, SPY, the Qs, IWM, but you also saw it on some of the individual stocks like Apple, and GE, Amazon, Facebook. So we're going to go over all these different examples. This video is not going to be that long just because we're going to see a lot of redundancy in a lot of these different charts we go over. But the idea here was yesterday we had this huge sell-off into close, and it looked like bears were definitely in control and we're going to fill this gap below. However, if you looked at the raindrop, and remember, if you're not familiar with the raindrop is a volume-based candle, which allows you to see the volume-weighted average price on the left and the right for the first and the second half of the period you're looking at. And then you can see this overlay of the volume profile on the left and the right showing where volume was located throughout the day. And so the biggest thing here is the fact that we had all of this volume within this wick. So that means as the price was going up and people were selling into, buyers, those buyers were absorbing all of that supply that was being dumped on the market. And how do we know that that supply was dumped on the market and was absorbed at this price? Because you would not see a big volume profile here if there were no buyers there to absorb that supply. So we know that somebody came in and absorbed that rather than what the hollow candle shows is that sellers came in and just completely took control. But you can see during the second half of the day here, if we show this arrow here, you'll see there wasn't a lot of volume near the low of this range. So you could see that this was definitely low volume. Now, if you compare it to something like this, I would have been probably a little hesitant to be bullish yesterday, because if we would have seen all this volume down here, that would have told us that sellers came in and started to drive the price down with volume behind it. Driving the price down means that supply was outpacing demand and the price was having to drop in order to find buyers. So here was a completely different story where in this case we've got this big chunk of buyers, and right, like I said, we know these are buyers because the volume was absorbed at this higher price. So, this is SPY. If we go to the Qs, you'll see something very similar. Yesterday on the Qs, you actually had a bigger wick, but you can even see here. Look at all of that volume within the wick, and you can see that by the arrow on both charts here. And this essentially tells us this candle is the same as this one. So I can also highlight this just yellow or green for you guys to show you it's the same candle. But it's a completely different looking candle versus the raindrop, where this shows that, definitely there was some weakness into the end of the day. Almost looks like kind of, some momentum just completely fading. But then here you could clearly see all of those buyers absorbing that volume when there was selling going on. So, if we go across the board, I'm going to pull up all of these, but you'll see just a very similar pattern here. And so this is why raindrops are so important, because they allow you to see the market in a different perspective. They allow you to see this volume flow without necessarily having to go into the 5-minute chart to look for those blocks of volume coming in. Going on to Apple, you'll see something very similar. Everybody was bearish on Apple yesterday, but it's like, when you've got all this volume at the top of the range, versus the price dropping, there's a big discrepancy here, and that's exactly what happened today. Notice that the raindrop today's got a nice big bulb. It almost looks like a light bulb here, just showing a lot of that volume was supporting price at the top of the range. Will we continue up? Who knows? But going into some of these other plays, you have the same exact setup. Facebook, I mean, talk about an absolute rip today. Facebook did have a green or a hollow chart yesterday, meaning buyers were in control from the open to the close. But you can see that during intraday, we did pull back almost 50% of what we moved up. And so you can see, though, all of that volume is at the top of the range of the candle, and then that was a precursor to this big gap up and go today. Even today, we still have a lot of that volume at the top of the range. So will this continue up? Who knows? But if we did maybe even throw a fib on there, it would give us an idea of maybe where we could go. Look at that 1.618 zone above. That's at the 270s. So is this just getting started? We'll have to see. But another thing that's really interesting as well, if you do draw that fib, you'll see there was quite a bit of volume over that previous high here, which we started the measured move from. So all in all, raindrops are just something that have completely changed the way that I trade, simply because I can get an idea of really who's in control. Amazon was a great case study on this as well. On Monday, we were looking at this horizontal level breaking out. You could see all of that volume supporting price above the resistance line. You've got your continuation up for now 2 days. Notice yesterday it looked like sellers came in, very similar to Facebook, but actually you can see how much volume is at the top of that range. So for all these sellers that came in, there was a buyer there to absorb those shares at this higher price. So the last one I'm going to go over is GE. This is one that had an interesting setup yesterday, same type of thing. If you look at the raindrop versus the hollow candle, the raindrop looks a lot more bullish than the candle did yesterday. Notice that we closed red, but within this wick, you could see all of that volume, and then we had our continuation up today. What's really interesting about today is we have the same type of setup where we do have that wick at the top of the range, but notice how much volume there was accumulating up at this area, showing that there were definitely buyers coming in to take some of that supply that was being dumped on the market once we were getting close to 650. So this is also interesting because we do have the blue raindrop. This is not necessarily a blue raindrop at the bottom, but this is a blue raindrop pretty close to what I would call a pretty decent bottom, or at least a breakdown from the previous one. We dropped 30%. We finally have another blue raindrop form. We've got volume at the top of the range on this blue raindrop, and we do have the Alpha Trends anchored VWAP from this high on February 12th, way up in the 760s. So GE was a tough one, a tough trade for a lot of people, stopped out a ton of people, but that's the name of the game. If we look at that breakout from earlier this week, there was definitely a status quo change here. You could definitely see buyers were serious this time, breaking through this resistance line that was tested multiple times here. So definitely an interesting one into the rest of the week, as well as a lot of other trades out there, but this is all the time we have for this particular video. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And we post videos like this every week, midweek. And we also have a few new technical analysis series videos coming out in the next couple weeks. So make sure to pay attention for when those come out too. So once again, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And thank you so much for watching.